If you have great marketing, but you have a bad product, you're just wasting money. We need to find a problem to solve, and then we need to find the right tool to solve that problem.
The Next Gen Sales Leaders Podcast. Coffees for Closers.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Next Gen Sales Leaders Podcast. My name is Benjamin Reed, and I'm here with Geraldina Olson. She is a fractional CMO and a marketing wizard, and welcome to the show.
Hi, Benjamin. How are you?
I'm very good. So let's get right into it. How did you get into marketing? And if you could give everybody just a 10,000 foot overview of what your specialty is and what you think your marketing superpowers are, we can then go from there.
Yes. I have been a marketing professional for about 20 years at this point. I am originally from Italy, as you might have guessed from my accent. And I have been in the United States about 10 years, though. And I currently work mostly with B2B SaaS companies that are ready to scale beyond the founder-led stage. And I help them go from that stage where they have marketing, but it's kind of fragmented with one-off campaigns and different tools that don't connect together, to a organized and structured growth system that they can scale.
So let's define the ICP a little bit further. So growth, post-founder-led growth, is that a certain revenue range? Is there anything in terms of certain signals you want to see when you go find your ideal customer?
I can think of a revenue range, but that's not really a requirement, meaning that a client work with me at different stages of growth and different stages of revenue. It's more about when the founder feels like they have outgrown that situation where they are the bottleneck. So that can happen at different stages of revenue. I see that happening most of the time past 3 million, but that's not really a requirement. And it's more about when, and you might have seen that too, Benjamin, when they do a lot of things. They might have hired an agency, or they might have contractors that do their SEO, another contractor that does paid ads, but they are the glue that holds everything together. And they feel like they are spending too much time in the weeds of the campaigns and in the weeds of like understanding what to do to make their marketing better, because they know that they have a good product. They know they have product market fit, but they feel like they're leaving money on the table. Or they have hired an agency, but they feel like they're spending too much money and they're not getting the results they want. So, and at the same time, they're not spending their time and expertise on what they think really matters, so that developing their product and making sure they stay competitive, which is, I think it's even more important in this day and age. So that's where I come in. And I help them delegate the marketing function. And basically, like I help them give someone else the responsibility on owning that function so that they can focus on what they can do best.
Mm-hmm. And this is a break in the podcast to bring you our sponsor, RevyOps.com. That is REVYOPS.com, the #1 GTM data management platform for your GTM and revenue operations data on planet Earth. If you are using the modern stack of Clay and Instantly and Email Bison and RB2B and Trigify and all these various tools scattered across the wind, we unify all that data all into one place so you don't have any duplicates, a unified view of every single contact so you can see all the data and all the activities across all the platforms all in one place. It will allow you and your team to move faster, to get better attribution across the entire funnel, and to make a heck of a lot more money. Go to RevyOps.com, check out how you can get started today with me on a call where we'll learn about your data management problems and how we can get you guys to the next level of growth. See you guys at RevyOps.com. Go there now. It will be in the show notes as well down below. Let's get back to the podcast. Mm-hmm. And this is cradle to grave, so you'd come in and help from managing all the outsourced personnel, like you said, okay, let's say they have a creative agency and then say a paid ads agency and then say a email marketing agency, or maybe they have somebody on the team who's kind of a junior marketer who's doing a bunch of stuff, but you need help with that. Is it all of those things, or what's the scope?
Usually when, so I mainly focus on strategy and leadership. And usually when I onboard a new client, the first stage is a very thorough assessment of their marketing. And that can also involve like the business as a whole, not just limited to the marketing function. And then we develop a 90-day roadmap on what they need to do next. And that includes essentially what they need to do, but also who has to do those things. So for example, let's say they want to launch paid ads, or they want to improve their paid ads conversion. Then if they have an agency, then we can work with an agency. If they have a junior marketer on board, then they can be the owner of that KPI. Or we might look into hire someone. So that really depends. And then as my work progresses, then we work in quarterly intervals. So after their first 90 days, then we go on a quarter schedule. And I stay on board as long as the business wants me to stay on board. And a lot of my engagements last, for a long time. But it doesn't have to. It really depends on the situation. And sometimes I also switch to what I call an advisor type of engagement, where I am only there every once in a while to make sure that everything is still working, and their team handles most of the day-to-day execution.
Very cool. So now I'm putting myself in the mind's eye of somebody who's about to scale past my own limits. And I want to bring you on. What is the first piece of advice you're giving me? And I know that's a very open-ended question, because you're thinking, well, what's the context, right? So maybe you could give me an example context that would make sense for you, but what would that even look like? What should I be thinking about as a founder in this stage?
So one thing that I really like this question, and I hope I am interpreting it the right way. But one thing that I see a lot is that founders in that stage of growth tend to have some similarities, and they kind of tend to fall in the same quote unquote traps. And you might have seen it for yourself, or you might have seen it for some of your clients. But one thing that I see is that a lot of the times founders have really scaled the company to that point, and they put their own work and their own personal effort into that. And they're not sometimes not super comfortable in letting go of that piece. And they feel like the business cannot continue run, or cannot run well if they're step out of that being the glue of the business seat. But a lot of times that's not true. So they just have to find the right person to delegate part of their control to. So in that case, if we're talking about marketing, it will be someone like me. But I think that's one of the things that I see happening, because they're emotionally, sometimes they're emotionally connected to their own company, and it's understandable. But I think it's more about finding the right partner to delegate some of the decisions and some of the ownership to, in terms of like who owns the outcome of this, right? And that way they can free up space for other things. So developing the product is usually one of the main things they're great at, and I want them to focus on that.
Got it.
And then another thing that I've seen, especially in the past few years, is that there's a lot of excitement about AI tools and automation tools, and like literally every day, I mean, no matter than me, like 100 tools come out, right? So there's a lot of times I see another trap is, oh, we need to try that new tool, or we need to try that, or I've seen him do that, I want to do that too. And I try to help them reverse the framework and say, okay, like we need to find a problem to solve, and then we need to find the right tool to solve that problem, rather than disperse energy on trying 10 tools every quarter. Does that resonate?
It does, and I think that there's always a question of focus. I literally just wrote an article on LinkedIn yesterday, which is the right answer is usually simple, but knowing what the right answer is typically difficult to get to. And so where people spend most of their time, their energy, their money, their resources, their effort, their sanity, is just iterating towards the right path. And so obviously, I think this is an easy conclusion to make, is that if you have somebody who can tell you what the heck to focus on and is also credible, that's important, but knows what to do, then that's a very important thing. And I think that one of the biases I think many founders have, and I would say I have too, is that I generally don't have a high expectation for most people. And so that's where people hold on too tight, where they're like, I can't give this to somebody because they're going to screw it up, right? And at least that's like the fear that goes in my mind. So if I was writing a headline to myself, I would say something like, how to scale your company from $3 million to $10 million with somebody who you know won't screw it up. I mean, that's basically my dream outcome, because I think somebody's going to screw it up. So yeah, that's why I'm very interested in, like, how do you, in your onboarding process, because that founder's like a baby, it's like, don't worry, it's okay, like, we'll take care of it. How do you handle those types of change management kind of period with the founder?
Well, I try to base that not just on my experience, which of course I have, so I can, talk about that, but mostly I think it's the framework, really. So it's just the framework and the approach that I show, like from day one. I tell them, look, this is what's going to happen. This is the framework we're going to work in. And they like that. So it's more about, I mean, if I don't, the same framework puts me in a situation where if I don't deliver on those KPIs that we established, then I'm out. So it's of course, I will not overpromise. And so I think that's what makes my work more credible and trustworthy, in the sense that it's not just, oh, okay, like, give me your outbound system and I'll fix everything and I'll get back to you. No, I'll tell them, look, this is what we're gonna do, and we have a bi-weekly schedule. So every 2 weeks, there's like a checkpoint where we can tell if we are on track or not. And this is distributed throughout the team. So the team is themselves, like whether it's one person or 10 people, they know what they have to deliver on, and they have to deliver every 2 weeks. So that's very easy to track, and it's very difficult to screw it up, to use your words,
Yeah, I'm curious, do you find, is this framework, I mean, can you say more about the framework, or does it change by client?
Well, so let's say the deliverables, the campaigns, or the things that we do are different for every client. So as I said in the beginning, like I would use the first 30 days, 15 to 30 days to run a very thorough assessment of the company. And then we create a plan based on that. So that changes for every client. But the framework stays the same. So there is a structure where we define, let's take a quarter, for example, right? A quarter has in the beginning of the quarter. So for example, right now, this week is I am closing the Q2 planning for next quarter. So the planning for next quarter for my clients. And we have, we established what priorities we want to work on. And there could be like some stuff that it was pending from before that we want to continue, or we want maybe new things that we want to launch. But the framework is the same. So there is a quarter plan with a final, let's say, goal for specific campaigns or specific things that we want to work on, and we work in bi-weekly sprints. So depending on what the campaign is about and what the goal is, like every 2 weeks there is a checkpoint on we should be here right now. And that can be like a numerical one, so like it could be like the KPI should be here, or it could be just by that day I will have completed the landing page, for example, right? Or things like that. But it's typically numerical. So that gives both the founder or whoever, the owner, myself, and the team a very structured way and fixed way to keep track of everything and know exactly what needs to happen and when.
I'm always very interested in asking other marketers what, and this might change based upon your client, so maybe you could give some examples, but what motions have you seen? I assume we're talking about lead generation and pipeline development here. So assuming that's true, what channels and motions or strategies that you think have produced the best results in the last 12 months for your clients? And what do you think you'll be deploying mostly for 2026? What is the most effective strategy? And I know that's going to change. Is it a product-led growth strategy? Is it a high ticket, lead gen, sales meetings type of strategy? Are you producing content? So anything you want to throw in there, let me know. But I'm curious on what you think the best practices are this year.
I really think that it's pretty much all that you mentioned. So the mix can change depending on the company and depending on what market they serve and what offers they have. But it's really all you said. So it is a mix of lead gen. A lot of clients that I have, they're fairly successful with paid ads, so they get solid leads from there. But content is a pillar right now. If you don't do content, you don't. You're not even visible. If you think about the whole AI visibility thing, if there's no content produced by you that is findable by AI and LLMs, then you are basically invisible, right? So that's not a non-negotiable right now. But at the same time, I'm also thinking about, it depends, because if you think short term, these are the things that come to my mind first. So cold outreach, paid ads, and content. But if I also think long term, and by long term, I mean something like 5 to 10 years, right? Horizon, I also think about more fundamental things such as the customer experience, like how are we designing the customer experience? Are we making sure that it's top notch? Because you don't want to just get the client, but we also want to retain that client, ideally forever, right? And thinking about the product. So that's kind of out of my scope, but not really, because everything is, of course, tied together. So we want to make sure that the product evolves to meet the demand of our ideal customer. And not only that, but stays competitive. So all of these things really, and the mix can change depending on the specific situation and the specific stage of growth.
I think that there's always this question of where does marketing end and product begin? And I've had this debate even in the last year, which is what is a product manager? And I've repeated kind of this trope over and over again, but I'll do it again here because I think it's a good frame of reference of a product manager is like a heart of a marketer, the eye of a designer, and the brain of an engineer. And so it's like something kind of in the middle. And so it certainly has a part marketer built into them. And especially in those types of early stage companies, even if there's product market fit, there's a never ending iterative cycle of product development where you're putting out prototypes, coming up with new features, doubling down on what's working. But there certainly is a marketing element to it. And I just think back to the old school copywriters where oftentimes the copywriter would tell the client what to build. Because the core of copywriting, which is very counterintuitive to people who have not deeply done copywriting, is it's actually mostly market understanding and research. And so they go out and they deeply understand a certain type of persona. And so that's the reason copywriters, the best copywriters, specialize. They specialize, like, for example, maybe it's women over the age of 55, right? On North American women over the age of 55 who are obsessed with beauty, right? Whatever that is. And so then they're going to become very aware of that very particular demographic so that they've already read all the other competitive articles. They've read all the other offers out in the market. They know where the client is in their awareness scale of buying. And there's different phases of market development. I love the Eugene Schwartz's copywriting book, Breakthrough Advertising. So they're very aware of all those dynamics, and then they come in and they tell the client, look, your product is saying and doing this. If you add just this little twist to it, it allows you to go into this new market segment. So I bring that up because in all my businesses, I've always been kind of the head of product, but also the head of marketing. And I actually, as I've evolved, I've thought more about product development and less about the actual marketing, because I have found that if I get that product development feature capability correct and I'm focused on the right demand, all the other things become easier. So I'm curious, how do you see yourself in that dynamic with product? Do you like to get really involved in the product development, or do you typically step back from that?
I really like this question and this angle that you're taking, because I think that one of the biggest challenges right now is cross-functional being able to optimize both for growth, right? And this needs to be a cross-functional effort. So the marketing and growth and product and operations and sales, they cannot operate, they cannot be silos, right? They have to, especially in this day and age, be collaborating very frequently. So I think that being a good marketer, but also being a good product manager means being aware of this and being aware of how all these pieces need to be connected together. So I love to be involved at every level of the company. I love to be a marketing leader that can connect all these functions under the same KPIs or under the same values, under the same, but we're still working toward the same goal at the end of the day, right? We want to grow the company, we want to have the best product on the market, right? And there's quotes that say you have the great product and the great marketing, then you're the best situation possible, right? If you have great marketing but you have a bad product, you're just wasting money, right? And if you have great product and bad marketing, you're leaving money on the table. So you want to make sure that both things are optimized to achieve the best outcome possible. And you can only do that if things aren't operating in silos.
Does
that resonate?
Yeah, there's a Naval Ravikant. I always screw up his name, so if I screwed that up, forgive me. But he says, I only sell because I don't know how to market, and I only market because I don't know how to build a great product. And the idea is that if you look at the biggest companies on planet Earth. I mean, the biggest ones, OpenAI, Google, Azure. Azure is not a great example, but very large companies. Very rarely are they focused on sales, and maybe they're focused on marketing, but for the most part, they're focused entirely on product. And there's a great quote from this podcast or YouTube video I was watching where they were interviewing one of the head of sales for Google on some of their cloud computing stuff. And he said that one time he tried to get a meeting with Sergey, who was one of the founders of Google, and Sergey said, "I don't have 2 hours." Nobody ever lost in the market because of bad sales. They lost in the market because of a bad product. And I thought that was really interesting because for me, I think that assumes that you're in the right market, right? If you're in the wrong market, then you're in trouble in a different way. And I can say personally, I've been in dying markets and I've also been in markets that are too small. But assuming you're in a big market, a big growing market, then the bare minimum is you just have a great product. I mean, I think just Tesla is such a good example of that, like where they just do zero real marketing. It's basically just Elon. But the product itself is just such a wow experience. It's like you get in a Tesla. I have a Tesla in my garage downstairs. And I get in, I go, bing, and it just drives me wherever I want. And the whole thing feels like a spaceship. People get in. I had my friend come over the other day, and he was like, "I was so excited to come over today because I couldn't wait to drive in the Tesla,"
Yeah.
And it seems so silly, but that's how, like, for example, Fathom, the meeting recorder.
Yeah.
I just log in and I have a fond feeling for Fathom. That was like alliteration. Fond feeling for Fathom. And I when I think of Fathom, I think that's just such a nice tool. It just shows up when I need it to. I can access the recordings. It shows up in my CRM. The user experience is just a pleasure. And so when you think about the marketing, it's just so easy. It's like once you get a user in, they're in, Whereas the hardest part is when you have friction on the onboarding, friction on the, there's so many support requests because the product doesn't answer the support well enough. So I think it's a very challenging thing to get to that type of product level, but if you can, I think everything else is better. Do you typically, I know we have to go here in a few minutes, but do you typically work with product-led growth companies, or is it mostly like higher ticket sales-led motions?
It can be both. But I want to say something in response to what you just said
Sure.
regarding the product. So let me make this super clear. Marketing will never fix a bad product. And that's just, as I said before, like if you have good marketing for a bad product, you're just wasting money. Because, that's just the way it is. So those very great example that you just mentioned it, I think the marketing is inside the product. They designed the product, so that is the marketing already. And they don't need to do, it doesn't look like they do marketing in the traditional sense, but they do it with their product. The product is the marketing. And they have a great product, and just the great product that are easier to market. And as I said, if you have a great product and great marketing, which can be your product itself, then that's the best scenario possible, because marketing will never fix a bad product. It will keep it afloat for some time, but then in the long run, the competition will win, right? So that I want to make that very clear, because I think it's very important.
Yeah, I think that this is also why I think no founder should hand over marketing until they have real product market fit. Because it's one is the search for the old Steve Blank quote of a startup is a temporary organization on the search for product market fit. That search is really freaking hard, because the product market fit, I said earlier, the answer is simple. Finding the answer is hard. The search is the searching for the answer. The answer in this scenario is the product market fit. But if you bring on, say, a head of like me or you into a company and you're like, I want you to go faster, but it's you're fundamentally pointed in the wrong direction, you will go faster and you will waste a lot of time, both on our budgets, for paying us, but also in terms of all the people that we're going after. So I think it's a very tricky situation because most companies that are unaware of this dynamic just think, hey, I've had some clients, I've gotten to $1 million, but they don't ask the basic questions of, is the market big enough? Is it, if I add this in, if I add more people to my product right now at a certain scale, will my product even be stable enough to scale? Could I actually even handle the support requests that will come in? Basic stuff like that. And so it actually makes the job kind of difficult for people like us, because before we can even take on the engagement, we have to filter people through this lens of, does your product actually work? Can you support, if I succeed, like best case scenario, I succeed, will it kill your business? I've seen people do too well with the marketing and all of a sudden the product just doesn't scale well, the team can't handle support requests, and you have different problems. So in fact, I would say one of the major reasons why I've seen companies fail is just because the product couldn't keep up with the marketing or the sales. So it's a tricky spot, and that's where it is helpful to bring on a fractional too, because a full-fledged marketing person in that transitioning period can be problematic if you get it wrong. All of a sudden you have this person you just brought over and they've left their big job, you pay them a big salary, and and it just turns out, hey, the product wasn't even ready for it. I know we got to go, but where can people find you online?
They can find me on LinkedIn under Geraldina Scarascia Olson. I don't know if you can put the link in the show notes if you can.
It'll be in the description.
And also GeraldinaOlson.com, which is my website.
Great. Well, everyone go check her out. Really appreciate you being on. I'm sure we'll have to do it again because we only had so much time today. But it's very interesting talking to somebody who is, on that the fractional CMO world and how you think about onboarding clients, because that's a whole journey unto itself, which we'll have to do on the next episode. So thank you, and I'll see you guys later on the next episode of the Next Gen Sales Leader podcast. See you guys.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Bye.
Bye.